You're welcome back to the second segment of the Key Points. Now, all of us have borne witness to the global scourge left by COVID-19, but now there's renewed concern about a variant named Omicron. Now, this variant, we are learning, is pushing numbers up in parts of the world. Ghana remains one of the countries making stringent efforts to fight COVID-19. This month, we will see an upscale of vaccination and revised restrictions coming into force to curb the risk of infections and ultimately deaths. Now, Ghana has adopted mandatory vaccinations for some category of workers, like other countries are seeking to do, like the US and Greece, which it recently announced same, where there are mandatory vaccination. However, there might be some opposed to the mandatory regime. We found out how government is dealing with that. And also, as the holidays are upon us, many of us recall the negative impact of celebrations, event activities, and the like last year. How do we avoid a repeat of high infections and deaths in the first quarter of 2022? Our guest this morning, Dr. Nsia Sare, who is the Presidential Advisor on Health, a former Director General of the Ghana Health Service. We also have Collins Mesita Moranga, who is a bioinformatics specialist with the West Africa Center for Cell Biology and Infectious Pathogens, known as WACBIP. And we also hear from the unions this morning. We'll hear from the National Association of Graduate Teachers President, Angel Kabonu, as well as Alaji Muro of GPRTU. But first, let's hear a brief clip from the Health Minister telling us about moving into mandatory vaccination regime.
And the authority that has been bestowed on us by the Public Health Act and its emergencies clauses, we are declaring the following persons to be vaccinated before early January. The specific dates will be announced later. All health workers, all security personnel, all staff and students in secondary and tertiary institutions aged 15 and above, all workers in all government institutions, including parastatals, and all commercial drivers. When I say commercial drivers, not only the long buses, long-haul drivers, including Trotro and Uber, and all types of people who drive people around to collect monies from them, including Okada. We will have a way of inspecting certificates before we allow you to do your trade. We are giving ourselves December. That is why we are scaling up our advocacy for vaccinations. We have distributed vaccines across the country. Every district health management team has got a refrigerator, storage for vaccines. We have teams across everywhere in this country, such that you can't come and tell us that we don't have vaccines, so your mandate will not work. We have the vaccines and want to make sure that our mandates will work.
And that's the Health Minister, the Honorable Ajiman Menu. So let's come back in studio, and I'll start with the Presidential Advisor on Health, Dr. Nsia Sare. Thanks very much, sir, for coming into our studios. So last year around this time, Ghana had done quite well with managing COVID-19. And we do have some graphics that I would like to go up, which outline the state of COVID death. So these graphics will show us what the global situation is, what Ghana's situation is, and the state of deaths, the top 15 countries, and then, of course, where Africa fits in. That will pop up shortly. But last year around this time, we had improved management of COVID. The global cases now are 262 million. That's confirmed cases. We've had 5.2 million deaths, a bit more than that. And we've had more than some 7 billion vaccines administered. Then when you look at Ghana, we have about 130,000 cases, a little over that. Deaths, 1,209. Vaccines administered, we've administered about 3.4, almost 3.5. That's what I picked this from the WHO, unless that's what has been allocated as for now. And in terms of COVID deaths, we're seeing the top 14 countries and their numbers. The top 7 have very high numbers. The top 8 to 14, I didn't bother to add the numbers, but I'm interested in the next numbered country, which is South Africa. They are number 15, and that will be popping up shortly. They have 89,000 deaths, and then after them you have a lot of countries. The next African country is Tunisia with 25,000. Then you move to 36, that's Egypt, 20,000, and then you move to number 46, that's Morocco with 14,000 deaths, and then Ghana is at 119, which has deaths of 1,209. So generally, it looks like Ghana is keeping things low, and there's an effort to keep things down. And generally, the African countries as well are not featuring as much as the other countries in the world. So to start with, last year we did well up until November, but then we eased restrictions in December 2020. And then in the first quarter of 2021, we saw a significant spike in case infections confirmed and then deaths, which threw us into a panic. Now that we are seeing December as the month of vaccination, what efforts are we making so we don't have a repeat of what we experienced last year?
Yeah, thank you very much, Difa, and good morning to our cherished viewers and listeners. Yes, as you rightly said, Ghana has not been spared of the COVID-19 pandemic as it is globally. I just want to just correct some few things. We have now given us at 30th of November 2021, 5,556,000.
Okay, so additional vaccines of 2 million
yes,
from
additional
that.
vaccines of 2 million. We've scaled up the vaccination. Now, average vaccination per day is more than 150,000.
Okay.
Every region, every district is now vaccinating. We want to, by the end of the year, vaccinate as many people as much as possible. Okay. As we speak, we have about 12 million. Let me get the right figures. We have about 12 million 234,710 doses of vaccine in country, which has come into the country since the 24th of February 2021, when we started the vaccination on the 1st of March, if you remember. And we have also in the pipeline about 10,221,090 doses of vaccines to come into the country, which we are expecting before the end of December. So we have enough vaccines in the system. What we need to do now is for the population who are supposed to be vaccinated to go out there and vaccinate. And that is what we are doing now. And that's why I'm happy that this morning I'm here to tell everybody that you need to be vaccinated. Apart from wearing your mask like I've done, and my my nephew have also done, everybody should put on a mask, go for your vaccines. You protect yourself, you protect your loved ones, and you protect the population at large. And then Ghana can then move on in our normal socioeconomic life. That is all what we want to do. And then I also say that, yes, we have gone through 3 waves since the pandemic started. The first wave was in June, July, August in last year. It was not too virulent, we didn't lose a lot of people. Then we came into the situation that we have now, where the cases went down. We were doing very well. We were wearing our masks. People were following the protocols. And then the Christmas came. And Christmas comes with a lot of festivities. And this virus moves where people move. So the virus doesn't have legs. It's human beings who take them to wherever they are supposed to take to. And that time, the vaccines were just coming. We were using our normal safety protocols, and people were very tired. People were not using it, and it's all sorts of things. I agree with everybody that wearing mask, if you are not a health professional, even if you're a health professional, and you are not a surgeon like me, it's difficult to wear masks for a long period. It's very, very uncomfortable. And then washing hands is also good, but people also sometimes forget it. Using the sanitizer is the same thing, and getting into crowded areas. So the Christmas came, people forgot themselves, and you are aware that when this pandemic started, the first cases who came into the Canada on the 12th of March were all imported. All the initial cases are imported. The virus per se is not in Ghana or in the sub-region. Everything which is coming is imported from other places. Our compatriots and other people came for holidays, and people forgot themselves. They were meeting families, they were having weddings, funerals, and then from January, February, March, especially in February, we have a very high surge, which we lost some people. And that time, around April, we then have also, it started going down, and then the Delta variant came in. And you see, maybe the scientists here will explain to you what is all these variants. The virus is a very troublesome creature. It changes itself, it replicates. It's like human beings having children. But anytime it's having children, they also come and make sure that, like ants, they want to put the big ones want to put the small ones down and kill them. So any time that they mutate, they come out of a lot of very bad or virulent species, which we call the strain. I'm sure he will explain all those things. So we've been apart from when the Wuhan strain came, we have alpha, beta, delta, gamma, and all sorts of things. Now we have Omicron. So anytime a new variant comes, the spike proteins are the ones that mutate, and then they mutate very fast, so that if you are not very careful, you get a variant which is very, very transmissible. And it transmits easily. It infects a lot of people. That's what we have heard, that the Omicron is transmit even faster than the Delta. Even though they haven't come out to tell us exactly, they are now studying it, if the Omicron is even more virulent than the Delta. That one we don't know. But from what is happening in South Africa, if it continues like that, maybe something which is very good, because it is not putting people to an intensive care unit and also killing a lot of people. And then I understand the South African is affecting more of the young people than even the elderly. So that is the reason why our young people who go out, are young people who are very mobile, not our grandfathers and our aunts and who are sick, who are at home. They will go during this Christmas to bring this thing home and then come and infect people. And that's the reason why last Wednesday, the Honorable Minister of Health came out that we now have enough vaccines in the system. We'll continue having a lot of vaccines. So if you add the 12 million plus the 10 million, we're having about 21 million doses. And next year, we'll get a lot more doses, so that every Ghanaian, as the president said, the vision is that every Ghanaian who is supposed to be vaccinated should be vaccinated. But the target is that we wanted to get at least about 20 million people vaccinated. Luckily enough, Ghana population, if you look at our population is a youthful population. But now that Pfizer has now said that we can now drop the age, Ghana has also, through our Food and Drugs Authority, now given emergency use authorization for people who are 15 years and above. So 15 years to the elderly forms about the 20 million people or 21 million people that you want to get.
Okay, just for clarity, the current doses available, you said the additional 10 million, so that will come to 20. Is that going to amount to the 20 million Ghanaians, or because we know that it's 2 doses, some are single dose, like the Johnson & Johnson?
See, the target is that we are trying to make sure that we get at least the 20 million Ghanaians who have at least 1 dose.
Okay.
And then in the course, because if you have, for example, if you have Pfizer, it takes about 4 weeks, and then you take the second dose. If you have Johnson & Johnson, it's only 1 dose. Ghana has committed itself to about 17 million Johnson & Johnson, which is coming in bits and pieces. Every month you get, sometimes now it's almost every week or every 2 weeks, we get some Johnson & Johnson from the African Union, African Vaccine Acquisition Tax Team. We've also been getting from COVAX system. Now we get Pfizer because we have the ultra cold chain system across the country in all the 16 regions. We are now also getting Moderna. We are getting now, luckily, the Indians have now relieved the export restriction that they put on when they have the Delta, and they were trying to immunize their people very fast. So now we are going to get more AstraZeneca also from the Serum Institute of India and from other sources. The Europeans are also trying to now give through bilateral means a lot of AstraZeneca that they pile up, which they want us to use. And Ghana, we are lucky that we have a system in place because of our expanded program on immunization, which is very robust. that we immunize from bottom up. So we do it from even the chief centers right down up. So people at the headquarters just supervise the regions, and the regions supervise the districts, and districts supervise the sub-districts. So we don't have a problem if you get the 10 million vaccines today. As I said, now we have ramped up and we are at 150,000 per day. I'm sure that was around 30th of November. I'm very sure even because of what we want to do, because of the mandate which will be coming in January, I'm sure they are now, I haven't gotten the figures from the 1st of December. I'm sure they've now moved to about 200, 250,000. We want to do it in such a way that by the end of this year, a lot more people will have been vaccinated. Because we have another 5 point something million. If you look at what we have vaccinated now, we have about 6 million still in stock, which we are releasing. Every day there's vaccines going out, and then more of them are coming in. So we are ready, and we want people to challenge the system. And the system is ready to vaccinate everybody. So if anybody is listening to me today, please go out there for your vaccines.
Okay. I'll come back to you on what the approach is. But Collins, in terms of these variants that the Presidential Advisor on Health had talked about, now many are worried about the latest one, the Omicron. How much of a threat is that to us in Ghana, for instance? Because initially when the health service met us, we were told that there was a sequencing checks going on, and then later on Noguchi indicated that some 30-something had been identified in travelers. So how serious a threat is this to us in Ghana, seeing the performance we've achieved up until now?
Yeah, thank you very much for inviting me to the show. So the Omicron variant, Ghana, we've detected, at Noguchi, they've detected about 34 new cases in 120 travelers. So you can see the numbers are huge. That's about a third of the people who are sequenced. And it poses a threat, but with the continued government efforts to curb it, like at the airport, isolate the people who are testing positive at the airport, they don't come into population, then the threat will be minimized. So what we are trying to do is to continuously sequence in the local population so that we can be able to track the Omicron variant. The thing is that most of these variants, they've always been introduced into the country through travelers who are coming in.
And to be fair, we don't want to bastardize or to demonize travelers.
Yes, we don't want to do that because then it will dampen the effect of countries sequencing and reporting new variants. Then countries will be scared to report, let's say they've detected a new variant, they will know they will be banned. So they might go silent on that, and you don't want to do that. Now, so far, Omicron in South Africa has been said it affects mostly children and young people. And the good thing that we know so far is that the symptoms are mild. So compared to Delta variant, which you lose sense of smell, you have high fever, high pulse rates, for Omicron, the only thing that has been reported so far is the feeling of being sickly and tiredness. But other than that, there's no fever, you don't lose sense of smell. At least that's what is being reported by the South African authorities. And this reduces the risk. The thing is that in Ghana, in all the waves that we've seen, the Alpha wave or the Delta wave, is that Ghana's been a little bit behind. Because then the travelers have to come in, and then there has to be some local transmission going on. But the good thing is the Ghanaian population has been resilient. So the other bad thing about Omicron is that it has a lot of mutations. So it has about 50 mutations. The bad thing is that 30 of these mutations are on the spike protein. So this is the protein that is like a hook that enables the virus to enter the human cells. Also, this is the protein that is targeted by vaccine manufacturers or the vaccines. Now the antibodies have to bind to this protein to be able to prevent it from
multiplying any further
and causing more infections. Now when you look at it in infecting more cells, if you have more mutations, like for example, you have about 15 mutations at the point where it attaches to the human cells. The problem is that it's going to probably increase how fast this virus is able to infect human cells, and then this will also lead to increased transmissibility of the virus. And this is the case that we are seeing. And then the other thing is that it's infecting more people who have been infected before, more like reinfections, as well as I think some reports on vaccinated people have come around. And that poses a challenge, because then you might end up having like breakthrough infections. So that's the biggest risk that's
Now, based on that discussion, you mentioned something about the Alpha wave, the Delta wave. Ghana seemed behind because it's as if the infections came in country and then we were playing catch up to try and fight those. Would you look at what we're trying to do now, ramping up vaccination, proposing a mandatory vaccination regime, for instance, as a way of getting ahead of Omicron, now that at least we know that it's coming in?
Yeah, so in terms of mandatory vaccinations, or the measures that the government is taking to be able to curb these infections, I would say mandatory vaccination is going to be very effective. But then people have the choice to still take it. So if you talk about Uber drivers, probably they are going to, it's a choice. You either take it or you probably stop driving around. So they still have a choice to take it or not. But then in terms of getting ahead of Omicron with the mandatory vaccinations and the enhanced measures, I think what we need to do is sequence more in the population, get more samples sequenced. So if we get 10,000 tests of COVID done daily, at least we need about 10% or 20% of those sequenced, so that we can determine how big the threat of COVID is within the population. So as much as we are increasing mandatory vaccinations, we are doing all those measures, we need to sequence more, at least a fraction of all the testing of all the tests in a day, so that we can be able to get ahead in understanding how much of the threat it is within our population.
Okay. So yes, Dr. Ansia, sorry.
Apart from the mandate, the vaccination that we are ramping up, you know, if you look at all the 3 waves you have in this country, they all came from outside. So we've put in measures to also limit importation. That's
Yes.
very, very crucial.
So one of those measures was to have people come in with a COVID
72-hour PCR negative test.
72-hour
That's the
PCR
first
test.
And the second sieve is also at the airport.
Yes.
Ghana,
Are we planning to revise that? I think I saw a publication that the US has decided to make it 24 hours.
yes, Ghana, what we are doing is that we are the only country, I can say that proudly, we are the only country who does instant immunofluorescent antigen test.
Yes.
It's different from what people say.
It's different from the PCR.
The lateral flow
Yes.
test. It's different from the PCR. What we are doing there from our FDA's test is about 99.5%. When any time that we have any of it being positive, most invariably PCR is also positive. Where PCR is negative, most invariably our antigen test is also negative. So it is very, very sensitive. That is the most important thing. And 2, you remember, just after Christmas, before Christmas, when you even test positive, we were advising them to go home and self-isolate. That was what caused the January, February, March wave.
Because we couldn't determine if they were really doing that.
And then I will give you a story. One time, somebody who was tested positive, they were going to check on the person after the 48 hours. And when they called, where are you? That he's not at home. That is in Accra Mall. So self-isolation is very, very difficult. So we then decided quickly, which we are doing now as one of our protocols, that if you test positive, you'll be mandatorily isolated. So it means we pick, apart from the 72-hour negative PCR test, which will not allow you to even to board the flight to come to Ghana. And
you isolate the individual from the population.
Isolate the individual mandatory after testing. So we pick up those who are positive. And yes, there are some people who may be incubating. Then we also now ask them, those who are all in the flight, that somebody has been positive, isolate yourself, wear your mask at home. And in Christmas time, that's where people, when our compatriots come from outside, people will go and they are going for their gifts, he's going to give this and this, and then they will start sharing the virus. So this is what we are going to make it strict, that we will follow anybody who comes during this Christmas, and then the flight, there's somebody who is positive on it. We will continuously be following the other passengers till the 7 days and the 14 days that we have to do. So Ghana is the only one who is doing that.
Okay, but just for clarity, I know that in the early days, we're doing a lot of spot
Contact
checks,
tracing.
contact tracing,
Yes.
and the like. That had taken a dip, it seems. And so even the data available, there are concerns about that. How can the scientists really have a full view about what the threat is in terms of COVID if we're not doing as widespread contact tracing and testing? I know there's a cost to it,
Yes.
but at the end of the day, if we want to keep track of what the threat is, maybe we need to return to that. Is there a plan for that?
Yes, we are also strengthening contact tracing during these Christmas festivities.
Okay.
But the problem is that everybody is tired. There's fatigue.
Yes.
Sometimes I pity our health workers. They are tired. You see, because this virus is still going on. We're all thinking that it will last. In fact, the airport testing, we all thought it will last for about maybe 6 months. But it's going on. But we will continue because it is also comes of cost to also continue the contact tracing by our districts and sub-districts. But the most important thing, and I want to tell everybody that you should be your own keeper and your brother's keeper. Make sure that you do what is supposed to be done. You follow the safety protocols and you also go for immunization. I know somebody will tell you, even as you were saying, that there are some people who have Omicron even though they are vaccinated. But I can tell you that even where they have a lot of people who are vaccinated and maybe they are reinfected, they don't end up in intensive care or death. So do you want to die? No, nobody wants to die. Do you want to lose a very a loved one? No, nobody wants to lose a loved one. So let us do all together. And let us make sure that when you are supposed to vaccinate, go and vaccinate. You know, when we started the vaccination, we gave priority to some group of people, the frontline health workers, teachers, media people,
and then the
executive, legislature, and all these things. These are the people that we are putting mandate on because they were given chance to go and vaccinate. And now we are also going to Uber drivers, the commercial drivers and everything, because you come in contact with people day in and day out. And we shall move the vaccination points also to lorry parks, to car parks. Now they are doing it in the markets. As we speak now, they are doing it also in churches. SDA churches.
So high conversion areas.
Conversion areas.
Yes.
We'll do it. We want to have better Christmas than we did last year.
Okay.
And we want to finish this Christmas without going into what we went through in January, February, March.
So we are discussing COVID-19 and efforts by government to ramp up and upscale vaccinations to prevent further infections, especially as a new variant of COVID-19 is spreading in other parts of the world. And now let's speak to the president of NAGRAT, the Angel Kabonu, about thoughts about mandatory testing for teachers, for instance. As many of us know, for 1 year, schools could not operate, teachers could not teach. A lot of it was done online, and that also brought a lot of concern and also impacted the academic year. Is mandatory testing for teachers a good way to continue what we have started and also to protect them? Would the unions be spearheading these? Good morning to you, Mr. Kabonu, and thank you for joining us. Okay, probably we have lost Mr. Kabonu. Once I'm alerted that we have him, we'll come back to him. But Collins, let me come to you now. There's been improved regime in terms of people trying to at least do the needful. I get a sense that there isn't enough enforcement. As somebody who is working in this scientific space, we see what the huge numbers are globally. Ghana has tried to at least keep the numbers low. There are still questions about why Africa hasn't been significantly ravaged. I don't know if by now the scientists are, I know there is no conclusion on that, but is there a meeting of minds on why at least Africa is managing to keep the numbers and the infections low, in spite of the fact that we've not had as many vaccinations as we would have liked?
Yeah, so it's true. I mean, Africa, we've been a bit sluggish in terms of vaccinations. But also our cases in Africa haven't been similar to the rest of the world. I mean, you look at those countries, it's now that we have Morocco, Tunisia, Egypt starting to rise up in terms of number of deaths. But Ghana, most of the African countries, the cases are low.
Is it also a case of non-declaration or maybe not providing the data for the majority of other African countries?
I think most people, unless those who eventually end up dying, going to hospitals, most people tend to manage the cases by themselves at home, probably
with local remedies and the like.
Local remedies, purchasing medicine over the counter, trying to manage the infections on their own. But I think also with Africa, we've tried to do the needful in terms of people trying to adhere to the measures, washing hands, social distancing. I think that was very effective initially when the COVID variant started, and people have been responsive, especially when it comes to different waves. People tend to be more responsive in terms of wearing masks, social distancing.
That's when they know the wave is at this height.
Yeah, so for example, right now we are going to the Christmas. People are going to be traveling a lot into the country and out of the country. Probably the wave will come around probably in January, because then people now start settling, and then there's local transmissions across the country. You start seeing but I think if we ramp up the vaccination exercises, we are going to see less of hospitalization. Transmission might be high. We are seeing some countries already having a fourth wave, like Germany and South Africa. Right now, the cases are skyrocketing due to the Omicron variant. And I think if we continue the measures, the way the government is advocating for people to be vaccinated, I think I'll suggest that we need to do a bit more in terms of vaccination. Let's take the vaccine to the people, door-to-door vaccination. Let's have a dialogue with people in their homes. Tell them about the vaccine, the advantages, and let's rest their fears about the vaccine by taking it to them.
Okay.
Other than waiting for them to come to the centers to be vaccinated.
All right, we'll come to that because Doc will tell us a bit more about that. But let's speak to Angel Kabonu now. He is the president of NAGRAT. Good morning, Mr. Kabonu.
Good morning.
Great. If you can just speak up a little louder. So the government has put forward mandatory testing for certain categories of workers. Teachers would also be part of that. Is that something NAGRAT as a union agrees to, or you feel your members would be opposed to that?
Is it mandatory testing or mandatory vaccination?
Yes, I'm referring to mandatory vaccination.
As a union, we will advise all our members to get vaccinated, because from what the World Health Organization is saying, vaccination is the only known protection for this virus. The problem we have is forcing people or compelling people by the weight of state force to go and get vaccinated against their will. That is where we may have a little bit of a problem. But we will support mass vaccination, and we will encourage all our members to get vaccinated. Like the gentleman you just spoke with said, let the vaccination centers be close to the people. Let the vaccination centers be available. When I see Amma go and vaccinate yesterday, and 3 days after vaccination, she is still strong and healthy, that alone is a motivation factor for Kofi to also go and get vaccinated. So I think that we will need to do this thing through education, public education, information, and the nearness of the vaccination centers to the people, so that you don't have to struggle like people are going through Ghana card. People will have to go and sleep in centers before Ghana card. We cannot do that. You can't use the weight of force to tell people to go and get vaccinated when the people have to go through struggle and pain to get vaccinated. I think that the vaccination centers should be close to the people. The vaccination centers should be available. And we also have to do a lot of education to allay the fears and apprehensions of people.
Now, government announced this just this week. Had the unions been engaged at all in terms of knowing that this was coming and potentially they will be part of the interest groups that will be required to be part of this regime?
Well, I have not seen any invitation for engagement. I also heard it in the public the way you also heard it.
Now, you talk about being against the approach being a weight of force or by government order. But to the extent that the education sector was significantly affected, the academic year had been hit. Why look at it as a weight of force or government order? Why not look at it as an approach by government seeking to protect not just the interest of the individuals who teach, who are your members, but the entirety of the education sector and the academic calendar?
That is what I am saying. That
you said they should be encouraged, but if you encourage people and they don't want to take it, then it defeats the purpose.
The people who have to accept the principle you are espousing. The people who have to understand that it is in their own interest that this ought to have been done. When you use the weight of force against the will of the people, that is when people will come up with fake COVID certificates. That is why people will go and pay their way through to get certificates that is not genuine. At the end of the day, the purpose for which you start the whole exercise will not be achieved. That is the tangent I am coming from.
So what would, you mentioned that you want the vaccination centers to be brought closer to people. So in the case of teachers, I know that now the holidays are coming up and a lot of schools would have finished exams. They should be wrapping up this week. What kind of approach would be best if, for instance, we want to target teachers?
Teachers are also people within the community. So when I say closer to the people, and teachers are not the only group of workers in this country. So when I talk about closer to the people, the vaccination should be within the community. The communities that the teachers find themselves, the communities that the students find themselves, the communities that the parents and our brothers and sisters find themselves. The vaccination center should be within the community, closer to the people, easily accessible, so that this exercise will be, I believe strongly, that far more people will go and vaccinate themselves than people won't. So if that principle holds true, then make the vaccination available to the people. I am not talking about sectorial vaccination. No, sectorial vaccination does not work. Just get into the community that we all find ourselves in. If it is Medina, put a vaccination center in Medina Old Road, put a vaccination center in Medina New Road, put a vaccination center in Medina Social Welfare, put a vaccination center in Medina Zongo. Let it be close to the people so that the people can easily access the vaccination service.
Thank you very much, Angel Kabonu, President of the National Association of Graduate Teachers. So, Dr. Nsia, sorry, I think those questions are for you. So, the mandatory vaccination, other countries around the world are trying to push it in, and there's been some opposition on two levels. There are those who just feel they don't need the vaccine and are putting their trust probably in Almighty God. Then there are those who have genuine vaccine hesitancy, saying that they don't believe the data is fully comprehensive, and so they are unwilling to go under that regime. In places like Greece, fines are being imposed for not wanting to take the vaccine. Listening to Angel Kabonu, it seems there's a little more engagement that may need to be done with the various unions, whether it's TUC, the GMA, registered nurses, the security agencies, the Ghana Road Transport Coordinating Council, and the like, to get them to agree.
Yes, thank you very much. I think every Ghanaian agrees that you need to be protected, and he agreed. In his case, it's even easy. For Nagrat, now the vaccination centers have been moved to all the secondary schools. The teachers go to school every day, so they don't have a problem at all. That's why we are saying that when we bring the vaccination to your doorsteps, you say doorsteps, you are bringing it to the schools where the teachers are teaching. And we are doing that because I think he also will agree with me that we had a lot, some outbreaks all over the country of secondary school. There are about 20 people, and then the children are isolated, and these students are not asked to come to school and all these things. So for the education service, there's a lot of collaboration between the Ghana Health Service and the Ghana Education Service. They have a school health program, and then they are working with the school health program in Ghana Health Service. So we have moved to the schools since 27th of November. We want to give the children, the teachers, and everybody the vaccines that they need before they vacate. 2, we have plans. The plans that we have put in place, which we are executing, is that we have static, like we put vaccination centers at various health centers and clinics and hospitals. We also have places, workplaces, that we have also sent the vaccination points there. We have mobile teams which move from community to community. We also have people who are going to churches as we speak now. I'm sure SDA churches, there are a lot of people there. Tomorrow, there are a lot of people who also go to the other churches which worship on Sundays. We go to the mosque. We also have people who have gone to the markets. There are people who are stationary at markets. You go to Techima Market yesterday. People will be there and they are vaccinating. And then we have also at lorry parks. So we've moved to everywhere. We are giving everybody the chance. As he rightly said, yes, we cannot force somebody. You don't want the vaccination, we'll force you to go and vaccinate. There are countries where the mandates are working. I'll give example, Germany. Germany, you have what you call the 3 Gs. You have to get infed, genesen, and get tested. I'm a German scholar, so I know what I'm talking about. Get infed means that we have been vaccinated. Genesen means that you have been sick, maybe of COVID, over the past few weeks. Get tested means that if you were not sick, you don't want to be vaccinated, then you yourself, you have to test yourself every morning at your own cost before you can join public transport, before you can go to a restaurant, before you can go to a cinema, before you can even go to your workplace. That's exactly what the mandate is about. During times of pandemic like this, especially when the scare is like this, and then we are losing a lot of our socio-economic life is all coming to a ground, and then we have to save our livelihoods and also our lives. The Public Health Act, which the minister stood on, can come
Section
22, can come out with sanctions, with a lot of things. For example, washing our hands, wearing masks, was all from executive instruments were made standing on the Public Health Act. So that's what we are standing on. So if you think that you are a teacher, or you are an Uber driver, or you are a driver, and that you don't want to be tested, then you don't want to be vaccinated, you rather park your car, because you don't want you to be also, you'll be a threat and a risk to somebody who is coming to join your vehicle.
And that person is probably vaccinated.
Is maybe vaccinated. Because that person, when maybe you pass something to the person, long distance travel to maybe Tamale, you cannot be in the mask throughout. Or a student who, when the students wear their masks, when they go to the dormitory to go and sleep, they don't wear masks there. When they go to the dining hall, they don't wear masks there. So if you are going to do that, and then the person may not be sick and go to hospital or may be admitted or die, but there's an old lady, he has a grandfather, a grandmother who is at home, who is a diabetic, who is maybe has cancer, who is sick, and he go and pass it on, and then the old lady will go. During the last Christmas, January, February, March, we saw a lot of people who have died, not because they went out to a party, it's because
Other people brought the
a grandchild
infection
went out and picked the virus. He was asymptomatic. He came to infect the mother, the father, the elderly sister. All the three of them died within a week. That's what we want in the country? No. So we are not saying that we will tie you to go and be vaccinated. Right? If you don't want to be vaccinated and you are with me in a hospital, in the same consulting room, don't come there.
Okay. Now, there's a question about this ramping up also of the vaccination quickly that I just need to ask. Are we ramping up vaccinations now because the lifespan on the vaccines is getting shorter? And so we are getting a lot of these vaccines now, and we really need to push the vaccination out, and then mandatory vaccination is really the way to ensure that these vaccines are used?
We are ramping up the vaccination because, God being so good, there's a lot of vaccines in the country now, and we want our people as quickly as possible to be vaccinated to have the immunity. Because if you want to have a herd immunity, you don't do it over about 2 years. You should do it as quickly as possible. I'm sure what is happening in Greece, what is happening in Israel, what is happening in Germany, what is happening in the UK now, if they didn't have herd immunity, about 80% of adults have not been vaccinated, we will see a different thing than what we saw in the earlier days when they were dying. Now you don't see them carrying people with ambulances and they're treating people and giving the critical care in ambulances. People are getting positive, like in South Africa, but their hospitals are not overwhelmed. That is one thing. We should make sure that we don't stress. There's a picture that Ghana Medical Association showed at their congress some time ago, and the Ghana Health Service have also shown it the last time they had a press conference, where the health worker is tired, and he's telling everybody that please protect yourself to protect me and my family, because they are tired. The health workers are tired. I'm one of them. So if you go and see somebody, it's always sitting in an intensive care unit. When we had the January, February, March, and also the August when a lot of people died, somebody goes to intensive care unit at Ga East Infectious Disease Center, or at when we were using the University of Ghana Medical Center. They sit down there and work about 48 hours continuous, because you cannot leave. There are about 5 or 6 people who are on ventilators. You cannot leave the fellow nurse or the fellow doctor who is about 1 or 2, and then he goes home. He stays there, changes, and then continues, and then you see them sitting in the chair sleeping. That is how we should be thinking about our health workers. Apart from that, other patients, with maybe those who are going for operation because they need operation to be done, are all postponed, because we took all the anesthetists from Kolebu to go and assist in Ga East, so that we can use the Ga East Infectious Disease Center in January, February, and March, and also in July, August, September. And that is what we don't want to see again. We cannot afford a fourth wave.
Okay. Collins, before we wrap up, your thoughts on, how we are managing and how we can prevent, a fourth wave, because we're going to have lots of events. I've seen a lot of advertising for activities and the like, and we don't want to destroy anyone's business. But then it begs the question, how do we get ahead of this in spite of all these activities planned?
Yeah, so the problem with, for example, Omicron or any new variants that we've seen is that they tend to have new mutations almost every day. So with each infection, you are likely going to have the virus changing in 1 or 2 mutations or hundreds. So what you want to do is minimize the number of unvaccinated people, and then enhance the COVID-19 protocols, safety protocols. And that's the only way we are going to get ahead of the threat of the viruses. So most people, if you have more people who are unvaccinated, the the pressure on the virus from natural infections, as well as the pressure from other people who are vaccinated, you end up getting viruses that are going to have like breakthrough infections or immune escape variants, and this is not good. So all the gains might be lost because of laxity of people from following the protocols or being unvaccinated.
So people must follow the protocols. If you've not probably even been following, you must try and do that at least now.
Yes.
Now, because
Yes.
the holidays are coming up and the activities are coming up.
Yes.
So, final word, Dr. Nsiah-Sarri. So, with all these activities and all these events coming up, I mean, it begs the question, should we really be having them now that there's even the risk of a fourth wave? What would you tell events organizers and all those who might have an activity or other at this time? And that would be your final word.
What I'll tell event organizers, before we allowed any activity to happen during the Christmas holidays, we've gone through a very strict protocol with the Ghana Tourism Authority and Ministry of Tourism, Arts and Tourism. We want them to follow it to the letter. We'll be watching out. If for one reason or the other, you cannot follow it, cancel your event. One, we know that a lot of people will be coming from outside for beyond the return, that they are all supposed to have 72-hour PCR test, which is mandatory anyway before you board the plane. They should all be fully vaccinated. And as they rightly said, that they will put all the safety measures, the washing hands, sanitizers, wearing of masks, and also in some cases they even told us they would like to test people from time to time at the event places. We want them to follow it to the letter. People will be there to watch out. And I know that Ghana Tourism Authority will also set people there who will be doing the self-monitoring and make sure that things work. We all have to be together. We are in this fight together. So if you all do this together, then we can have a very good Christmas without any much problem. We don't want to have the Christmas and then have what we saw this year, beginning of this year again. You can't afford a fourth wave. That one, I want to repeat it. We cannot afford a fourth wave. One, for our health system's sake, for our health workers' sake, and for our own economy. We want to build the economy and go back to normal socio-economic life as much as possible. But you can all do this together by, if you are not vaccinated, go and have a jab. Ghana Food and Drugs Authority, Ghana Health Service have all been following all those who have been vaccinated. We haven't had any very serious adverse reaction. For slight headache and pain and the site, it is normal. And I've already said that if you vaccinate and you even feel some slight pain and some headache, it means that it's working and working very well.
And just take some paracetamol.
So take some paracetamol and you'll be okay.
All right.
So the vaccines are there, the vaccines are out. If you have not been vaccinated, move out and go and get the vaccine. Because if you don't get it, the time by January, the mandate will be in force.
All right. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Many thanks to Collins Misita Moranga, who is a bioinformatics specialist with WACPIP, and also to Dr. Nsiah-Sarri, Presidential Advisor on Health. Many thanks to Angel Kabunu as well, President of NAGRAT. And that's where we end Key Points for this week. Join us again next week for another hot edition. I'm Jifa Bampo. Up next is Warm Up Plus.